So, hi, Christina. Thanks for this interview.
Thank you for having me.
So basically, I'm gonna just very quickly talk about a little bit about us, Fashion Talks, and then Joris will go ahead with some of the questions, and you can like introduce your brand, yourself, everything.
Okay.
Yeah. So basically, we started Fashion Talks about a year ago. We both have fashion background. So I worked as a retail operation manager for an ethical fashion brand who works with refugees. And I also work for GM Weston and Cartier, and I have a master's degree in luxury marketing. So we were coming together and we had like discussions about fashion. And in Geneva, it's actually like there's no community for fashion people. So we thought we should do something. And there were a lot of like interesting initiatives going on at the same time, like startups, new brands, and there is like a community, but nothing organized. So that was the problem for us. So we thought we're gonna make something, and especially because retail is down. So we wanted to combine all these different elements and actually bring people to retail locations. So we started to have events at these boutiques, showrooms, and there were, like a lot of people who were actually in the fashion industry and also those who are interested in fashion.
Right.
Yeah.
To follow Lena on what she said, yes, in Geneva is very international with a lot of expats and creative people. And we thought it is also an opportunity for them to learn something new. So we set up meetings at shops and boutiques where people can meet the designers and have a real experience of what is behind fashion.
Okay.
But that is us, and actually we're here to talk about you. To know, we know that actually you worked with great brands, and you have your own agency in PR and brand management. Can you tell us a bit more about you?
Yeah, of course. So I've been working in the public relations industry for 12 years now, and I started my own agency 6 years ago, like just shy about five and a half years ago. And the reason for that is I was leading as vice president in an agency based in New York, all new business. And for me, it was less about per sector, right? So menswear, women's wear, gender fluid fashion, accessories, and it was more about the brand's story, so that I was really able to connect the dots between the business side of things, the creative director's story, the trends that were relevant. And so it wasn't just fashion press. I then got to speak about thought leadership as well, and including designers that I worked with and the people behind those brands, to then be able to speak on different panels, travel internationally. And so I decided to go off on my own, so that it was me choosing who I wanted to work with. And by that point, I had humbly, like a successful enough career to be able to make that shift and go from a true agency environment, which just was not for me, to something a bit more boutique that allowed me to work with international brands that I wanted to. I think the biggest thing, and especially relevant to this conversation, is there are such nuances between international markets, and that can boil down to the way that buyers in the US are going to react to a line sheet versus buyers in Paris, or versus buyers in the Middle East or the East in general, like if you're looking at India, for instance. And additionally, it's also, you know, the way you tell your story, the way you position your lookbook. And so it became really important to me to be able to be based in New York. I used to live in Paris and worked with, you know, different designers across the world, and introduced Kurt Geiger, which is kind of like the Steve Madden, if you will, of the UK, to the States, and just be able to connect those dots of what the American buyer is really looking for. not only from a customer point of view, but like from a like industry buyer perspective and what they know is going to sell stateside. And so I've had that for, like I said, about 5 years, been in the industry for nearly 12. And then in addition to that, I am managing partner of Duca Sartoria and Duca Donna. The Duca Sartoria brand is a custom made to measure suiting company. Comes from the family actually that founded Gianni Versace. So a lot of heritage, it's very rooted in heritage, based in Italy. We have an atelier in Milan. That factory, as everyone can imagine, is currently closed. So I'm sure we'll get into like the effects of COVID-19 and just not only the world, but specific to the fashion industry. And what we've done there, and again, this kind of comes into the story element, is custom suiting has historically been for the menswear market. And you really never saw that in the women's wear market. It's the question of why. And historically, that is just what was done. But there are plenty of industries where women are requiring suiting and want to build their own personal closet. And the elements are, like, you never go into a woman's jacket and you have your own little pocket for your lipstick versus lip gloss, et cetera, your own specialty lining, and being able to be inspired by something and then have that made yourself. And so those are the two avenues that I'm in fashion at the moment. We expanded officially to women's about half a year ago. So it was like 6-7 months ago. And Women's Wear Daily covered that story of our expansion and the disruption that it brought to the market and my being the face of it. And then I simultaneously have my PR agency. So I'm internal in one, and that's the suiting side. And then I'm the storyteller, if you will, for these additional brands on the public relations side.
That's impressive.
Yeah, of course. Yes, definitely.
Thank you.
And you were talking about like international. You have an international background, and you have worked in Paris as well.
I did.
And you speak French.
Let's not do it on this call. It will make me too nervous. Yeah. I lived there nearly 8 years ago. So as you can imagine, it's not as good as it was then. I still go back every fashion week. So I actually barely escaped France this past round. I think that they like shut the borders 3 or 4 days after I left.
Oh God.
But yeah, I miss it all the time. I'm actually, COVID is allowing me to, I just bought another year of French. So I'm actively taking lessons again so that it's
That's awesome. Actually, I'm doing that in Spanish.
Yeah. So I'm doing that right now. And so who knows, maybe in a couple months, we'll do a second round of this and we can do it in French.
But actually, does your background influence what you do?
Yeah, it definitely does. When you look at the fashion market, there's no American designer or there's no international designer for that matter that doesn't want to be recognized in the European market. There's always the conversation, is it Milan or Paris? It's the fashion capital of the world. It's my, I prefer French fashion. So this is what I always say. But then there's also, you have the Council of Fashion Designers of America, the CFDA, who has a different and unique perspective on fashion as well. But internationally, those are the markets that you're looking to. And so to be able to connect the dots between them and say, this is going to gain attention and appreciation from a French buyer versus an Italian versus an American. There is a steady stream of things that just the industry is looking at in general. But then again, if you can just kind of change those stories a little bit with these slight nuances, that's where you're really able to have an international buyer and be able to become a household name across markets. I find the only true differences really lie in when you're looking at the Middle East and you're looking at the East in general, those become a bit different. But when we're looking at New York and then European markets. I always consider New York and LA really different, right? And it's like, I can never just say the American market, because LA is so celebrity focused, and it's so red carpet focused, and it's also beyond that. Casual wear is so specific to like health and wellness and also weather, right? So you have LA, and then for me, you kind of have New York, Milan, and Paris all in one bucket, and then you have the East, which is a bit different. But on the flip side, I mean, your major fashion houses and the luxury market, and I know, Elena, you studied that. I mean, you see that everywhere, right? But that's ultimately still coming from Paris and Milan. So yeah, I mean, my time there definitely, I think, helps add perspective. And when people are asking me my opinions, I draw from that, knowing that ultimately they want to be relevant in as many places as possible.
And what do you think, what is the most important part of PR today? Is it the same for different markets, or different, even for different industries? Or
I think people just want to connect to brands. You know, I worked with this one company called the Fluid Project, and they were initially, like when they first opened, they were coined as the first gender neutral store, right? And so then it was a conversation of what did that mean? And really what it meant when you walked into the store is there wasn't a men's section and there wasn't a women's section, right? It was just free to shop as you will. And that story made it all the way to Vogue India, right? I mean, we were in a Japanese newspaper that I couldn't even read. I think we were in some Eastern European Vogue. I'm blanking on which one it was. And then, you know, the New York Times, et cetera. And so why that story became so relevant, and hopefully this answers your question, is because there was such heart and soul to it. You know, there was a mission and a concept, and it wasn't about, you know, what was the best-selling jacket, what was the best-selling pant. It wasn't about that, right? It was just about, why does this brand exist? What is their mission and concept? And that company in particular, their target market was definitely a younger demographic. So it was like the Gen Z demographic, who at the oldest, I believe Gen Z is like 22, 23 years old right now. And they account for 40% of national spending. So I'm speaking specific to the US in this moment, and that's $143 billion. So those are crazy numbers to look at. And so that is the most important thing about PR, is you have to constantly be changing. And it can't just be about that like must-have leather jacket this fall season. Like it's not like that anymore. Because if you have 10 and they're all a variation of a classic motorcycle jacket, the ones that people are going to be buying are the Instagram that they relate to, the faces of the campaign, right? Is it your classic, you know, white, blonde, skinny model, or is it people that they can relate to? So are you spanning culture, right? Are you spanning skin tone? Are you spanning generation, right? Cultural association, all of these things become really important. And so the PR aspect is, we're so saturated right now. So if you have multiple brands that are ultimately kind of doing the same thing in women's wear, or they're about ethical fashion, or they're speaking to different trends that are happening in the market, the ones who are ultimately going to do the best are the ones that gain customer loyalty. And by doing that, it's paying attention to the faces of your campaign. It's paying attention to the language that you use. It's being sensitive to things like radical transparency. So that's like, are your workers being paid enough? Is your factory practicing, you know, responsible manufacturing, et cetera? And so that's where PR becomes really relevant, because people are only becoming more intelligent. You know, they want to see where their money is going. And I'll give you one example of just like, you know, younger buyers right now. And again, I mean, they're taking up so much of the marketplace. Like my youngest sister is 20, and she does not buy like anything without like makeup, for instance. every time she buys any sort of makeup, she's like, was this tested on animals? Every single time. And that just goes to show the way the mindset is changing. Like, I didn't grow up, I'm 34 years old. I don't want to wear makeup that's tested on animals, but that thought process
To look for it.
isn't even in my mind, you know? And so you're increasingly, and marketers and, you know, public relations professionals that have been in it for a long time, and the people that are sitting at the board table, they really need to pay attention to younger people and the questions that they're asking, because that is ultimately going to be the brands that end up succeeding. So
it actually feels like that buying good is becoming very, very important for people.
Yeah.
People by Gen Z.
Yeah.
And to conclude what you said, but basically, also how you position it and how you tell what you're doing is extremely important. So it comes down to storytelling, what you are doing, right?
Yeah.
So to be a storyteller, is it like the main aspect of what you do, or how would you?
I mean, look, you have to connect everything, all right? So who are the people behind the brand? You need to know that. You need to know their stories. And so when I first work with any company, and it's not always fashion, it's asking them, what brought you to bringing this company to fruition? What inspired you? How do you think you're disrupting the market? And answering all of those things, and then taking their mindset, their perspective, and how did that then go into the collection that you're making, right? And so you see so many trends of, like, you know, the working woman who's running around, and then you have an event that night, and, you know, do you go from like your white beige sneakers to like throwing on a pump later in the evening and having your outfit be able to translate to that? And so that's been like a huge trend you've seen. As you talk to a creative director, and it's like, I'm that woman who, you know, is running all day, and so I wanted to create a collection that spoke to that, right? And taking the modern woman from day to night. And so, but you have to start off with, who is that woman? And then sharing that. And once you know that, that's when you attract the right customer, the customer who is connected to you, and they're like, they get it. They get what I'm going through. You know, I worked with someone else, other brand, Catherine Quinn, years ago, and the material that she used, everything was silk lined, et cetera, but she was always on the run, constantly traveling. And so she was always just like picking things up out of her suitcase. And so a lot of what she designed were things that were easy to do that weren't going to be wrinkled when she got out, right? So what you start with is, why has this brand come into existence? What solution are they trying to bring to the market? And who's going to connect with that? Mm-hmm. And then once you've really determined that, that's the ultimate like language. And then you couple that, you know, some brands are like, it's cross-generational. You could be 20 and wear this, you could be 45 and wear this. And so if that is the case, and you're spanning from 20 years old to 45, 50 years old, you need to then represent that in your campaign. Who are you casting? What models are you casting? And so that becomes also part of PR and brand management for me. It's not just, I want to get my brand in Vogue, or I want to be in like the Designers to Watch in Women's Wear Daily, or in Harper's Bazaar, or GQ, or whatever it may be. It's offering them that intelligence and helping them to connect, which then ultimately makes my job easier, because it becomes valuable to the reader. You know?
And to be like more specific to what is going on right now, we're talking about communicating with the clients and people, how brands supposed to communicate and promote themselves right now during COVID-19, while they have to remain sensitive to what's going on. What's your take on that?
Yeah, you know, nothing really can prepare you for a moment like this. It's a day-by-day conversation that I have with myself as a PR professional, that I have with my clients, of what now? You know, I have a client that's based in New York, factory in New York, entire sort of like made in New York story, and the factory is shut down, right? And it's a small company. And so in a lot of ways, they are on pause. And I'm a really big believer in just being transparent. You know, you need to be sensitive to what's happening and the financial crisis that it's putting onto people. But small brands also cannot take a hit like this. And so there's a balance of saying, we really want to be there for you. We understand that now is not the time to be asking people for their financial support. What we're trying to do is do our part. So things like using extra fabric to make masks and to help, to be able to say, we're a small business, we want to survive this. We're not trying, like, just simple things like, we're not trying to be insensitive by sharing our spring collection with you, but it is that time of year. And, you know, we'd like to offer, like, we want to share with you our, you know, our spring collection because now is that timing, and offer some sort of discount by saying, we still need to survive. Like, young businesses still need to survive. Brands still need to survive. And so to ignore that and to just shut down when you have a loyal customer base is also not the answer. So it's leading, for me, it's always leading with transparency, you know, getting on there, having live videos, talking to your customers and saying, what do you need from us? Is it masks? Is it discounts on the spring collection so that you can still feel like you're elevating your wardrobe for this next season when we all come out of this and are really going to be wanting to interact with one another? And it's asking, it's a dialogue. You know, brands need to have dialogues. Everybody at the table isn't going to have the answer right now because we've never been through something like this before. And so rather engaging and asking people what they're looking for, what they want, for me, this is the answer.
How should they do it? On social media or like Instagram Live or?
Yeah, I think Instagram Live is a really powerful tool because people can join and then you have that back and forth. So Instagram Live, I would say definitely makes sense. I think that you can, you know, I also think that companies, instead of constantly sharing their, like things like their new collections or trying to sell, I think there's a balance. And so companies need to ask themselves, like, what are they looking for? And so whether it's sharing some sort of like meditative or uplifting quote, you know, a photo of sunset, like things that are uplifting, you know, because you also, brands need to be able to paint a mood of who they are. It's not just an aesthetic, right? It's a vibe, it's a mood. And you're trying to connect with people. And so there needs to be a balance of that. And I think that you can use that in, you know, quotes that you offer in the language, like the captions of what you post as well. I think the dialogue really needs to happen on Instagram Live. And I think, you know, on the website, the website can't just be about selling right now. It needs to be more about a lifestyle because everybody globally is going through this. Everyone. I have friends and family, as I know everyone on this call does as well, across the world. And so we're all going through the same thing. And so that needs to be acknowledged.
Again, actually, you talk about brands and COVID-19. Actually, do you think brands stop their activities, such as press release and product launches because of this, because of the COVID-19, or they can continue like before?
You definitely can't continue like before because that is, I mean, it's insensitive, right? And so you're going to lose people if you just continue like before. That said, brands also cannot afford a full halt. So that's where I say, you know, you're not just putting a press release over the like wire right now or whatever else. I mean, I'm seeing it with my own clients. Like I have a swimwear client who this historically would be like really good timing for them to get pressed because people are getting ready for their spring and summer vacations. They're excited. It's like still cold out, but they, you know, like you're looking forward to those moments, right? And, you know, there really has been like very minimal traction right now. But it's been a choice because we're like, the timing's not really appropriate, but you still engage, right? Because everybody still has a job, and there's only so much as far as the fashion narrative is concerned that you can talk about COVID, right? It becomes unbelievably depressing. You're talking about like manufacturing, you're talking about stores closing. And so there is a balance, like I said, of like letting people know like we're still here and we're still manufacturing and this is still available, but we simultaneously want to be sensitive to your financial situation. So by doing our part, we're offering a discount on the latest collection, things like this. And leading it also with the fact that they need to survive. Like this is also the conversation. Like companies need to survive. And so how do you do that and stay sensitive? And that's where it's this dialogue and this back and forth of like, what do you need from us? What do we need from you? That's what people are looking for now.
Okay, thank you. Interesting. And actually how you yourself, you position as a fashion brand, as it is not like considered essential spending. So during a crisis, how do you position yourself?
So it's especially important, just as you said, for like that swimwear company, or even for any kind of company, because fashion is so like something that people can feel like they can put aside. So it's very, very, very specific.
Right. Yeah, I mean, you know, I think the brands that are going to come out of this you're going to see a lot of companies, restaurants, like places that people love shut down because they're not deemed essential, right? I mean, you buy into new fashion, you go like hit your favorite wine or cocktail bar or restaurant or whatever else when you're fluid with money. And a lot of people are not going to be fluid with money for a long time. Yeah. And that is where you have to really do your best to connect to the emotions with people right now, right? If they feel that you're just pushing products because you need to stay alive, like I get it. I mean, these brands need to stay alive, which means they need to make sales. But the people that are going to come out of it are the ones that are speaking with their customer base. And that means they're asking them how they feel, and they are having these Instagram, you know, live sessions. And so more than ever, you know, you don't see a lot of times like creative directors and the main people behind the brand getting on and talking about it, you know? But how powerful would it be? And I actually don't know the answer. I'm not sure if he's done this yet, but like if Marc Jacobs got on live and you logged in and like, then you have the opportunity to have it back and forth with someone like Marc Jacobs. Like this would be massive because people would feel heard, right? And so the brands that start doing things like that and feeling like they're heard and feeling connected, when they do have an extra couple $100 to buy product, they're going to go to the ones that they felt most connected to during this crisis.
That makes sense.
Yeah.
And maybe brands could also like work on their existing strategy and things that they left to the side before. It's a time for them also to refine what they are already.
No, it's Elena, it's such a great point, you know, because you look at company, like it's like, oh, I finished this season, I have to get to this season, I have to do this. And like things like social media, or really paying attention to like things like casting that I told you, or redoing the website, like that kind of stuff oftentimes gets pushed to the side because you need to hit some deadline. You know, I'm guilty of this. I think everybody in every industry is guilty of this, you know, and right now we're forced to slow down, and slowing down allows us to really refine, as you so perfectly said, Lena, like it's perfect. And like you go back and you know, you talk to your senior team, and again, you really connect with people and like different industries. And it's a perfect time to do that. So if people can take the time to connect and to refine, I mean, to put it really simply, connect and refine, I think are the two major things that brands need to do right now to come out of this alive.
Thank you, Christina.
Okay.
So,
You're welcome.
and very interesting. So top tips, basically, was it focus on online, right?
Yeah, focus on online, focus on social media and that interaction with people. If you have the platform to be able to do it, I would say kind of like host these virtual events that people are starting to do and really kind of tap into that. Make it, definitely strike a balance between, you know, your like e-com and your need to financially survive with just connecting to people's kind of heartstrings and their emotion right now, because that's gonna be where you really see customer loyalty, is that connection. And I think go back and refine, you know, your quarterly strategies, because now you have the time to do it. And this is something that was obviously, you know, unprecedented and not looked for, but I don't see how the world can go back to how it was after this. You know, people's behaviors are going to change. And so the other thing that I would say is to really project what those and anticipate what those changes in behaviors are going to be and how you can implement it into your business model.
Yeah, such as transparency, being transparent.
Yeah, you have to be. Everyone, you know, this is like one of the first times ever that everyone globally, like no matter your age, you know, so your generation, your cultural association, your religious association, where you live in the world, everybody's the same. You know, I mean, my family in India has been in lockdown for 3 weeks. I mean, I've never been in the same kind of position that they are ever, you know? And so as far as like a global circumstance is concerned. And so the helpful thing there as well is like, we have the same narrative internationally. We're all locked down right now, you know? And so, and we're all emotional about it and we're all feeling confined. So, acknowledging that, I think, is important.
And also it could be an opportunity because everybody's online.
Exactly.
Just need
everybody's online.
Yeah.
And the fact that they are, that's because they're starving for social interaction. So use that. Get online with them. Ask them questions. What do they want? What do they want to see? People love that. You know, people want to feel heard and appreciated.
Do you think that after that, the brands will be more connected to customers?
I think that the brands have an opportunity to, and they need to pay attention to that. You know, like the brands that aren't going to survive are the ones that are just like, oh my God, how do we make money? I need to apply for this loan. Yes, you do. You need to apply for the loans. You need to make sure that you're going to be able to be financially viable to still be there for your customer. But like the ones that strike that balance and connect with their customers and do that via social media, via live videos, via the language that they use and things like their captions, acknowledging it on their home pages, all of that. You know, even on your home pages, it's like for every sale, you know, you give some sort of relief, whether it's financial relief or make masks or whatever it may be. Like by doing that, they're connecting the dots and people are going to appreciate it. And so the brands that really pay attention to that are for sure, they're going to be the ones that are more connected to their customers than they were before, because they have the time to do it. As Lena said, you know, you have the time to connect and refine.
Thank you so much.
Interesting. Yeah, thank you very much. Yeah, we still have actually like 5 minutes.
Excellent timing. We are just in time. So yeah, we really appreciated your time, the sharing, and the tips, and I'm sure that the brands that are following us will make use of this. And then post this on our YouTube, also on Instagram. Yeah.
Perfect. Well, thank you for having me. I really appreciate it. It was a good conversation.
Yeah, thanks a lot, Christina. Thanks a lot. And yeah, thanks to also like people who join us, who watch this interview, live interview, and yeah, hope to talk about maybe another topic, of course. And
anytime.
Yeah, sure. Thank you very much.
All right, thanks. Take care.
Thank you. Thanks all.